It's Matt Barrows on the River Islands guest line, and we go out to him now, but we have to start, instead of asking about Christian McCaffrey, we have to start by congratulating him, because based on today's news, I'm pretty sure you now run The Athletic. Is that correct, Matt?
Last man standing. Yeah.
I mean,
sure. Me and Marcus Thompson are the two pillars now on the 49ers beat. I should say that we are going to be adding some folks to that. It's being settled right now, but there will be some movement in the future.
All right. They used to call it The Athletic. I call it The Barrows until further notice, but let's get to what everybody else is talking about. How does this news grab you, and what do you think a 49er fan should brace for right now with regard to Christian?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, 2 days ago, the prospect of IR caused Kyle Shanahan to say, "Yeah, I never even considered that." We thought about playing him against the Jets. 2 days later, it's totally different. What happened was the 49ers had their hardest practice of the week on Thursday, and McCaffrey didn't react well to it. Shanahan said that the pain that he was experiencing after that practice was the worst it's been since this became problematic in early August. So he's going in the wrong direction. It's not getting better, and all signs point to IR. All signs point to it happening tomorrow. And then the question would become, okay, is it just 4 weeks, or is it longer than that? Because it's been the nature of this, is that it starts to go away. Everybody starts to feel better about it, optimistic about it, and then it comes roaring back. And so, my sense is that Christian McCaffrey is a guy that has trouble resting it, that he wants to be out there. He wants to be working. He wants to be practicing. But I think that what it requires right now is just him being off of that calf, him not running around and practicing, and then seeing if it resolves itself on its own.
Do we have any idea when the genesis of this injury was? We've heard reports that it was sore going back to last January. Has it been something, Matt, to your knowledge, that's lingered since then all the way through now?
I asked him exactly that yesterday, and he was clear that it was not related to last year's calf injury. So apparently, that happened in Week 17, that game against the Commanders, and then he was ruled out for the following week game against the Rams, and nobody really took it that seriously because most of the starters didn't play in that game. And then, of course, they had the bye, and then he was on the injury report for the Packers game, the divisional round game. He practiced that week. I forget whether he even had a questionable status. I don't think he did. And he played well in that game, and everybody totally forgot about it. So, and he was fine for the Lions game, wasn't on the report that week, wasn't on the report for the Super Bowl, looked really good in both of those games. So I think it resolved at that point last year. And Achilles was never part of the equation. It was just calf. So I think that's right, that it's not related to that calf injury from last year. This is something new. And obviously something that just won't go away.
Okay, Matt Barrows, The Athletic, with us. So I think that's something fans would like to know more about, which is sort of like the timeline of the entire summer. He got a new contract this summer. Is this something that at that time the Niners either didn't know about, or did they just think was going to go away, or was it just not even there at all?
I mean, it just throws another complication into it. In the 23 offseason, we were all surprised that he was out there in the spring. Very few veterans are practicing in OTAs. He was out there, and he was practicing like he was getting ready for the Super Bowl. I mean, these were kind of full-on practices. And then he was there for the summer as well. Wasn't quite as intense as that. He was getting regular rest days along with Nick Bosa and everybody else. This past spring, the 24 spring, was entirely different. He didn't take part in the spring, but also was going through contract negotiations, and then also was getting married, and there were all sorts of things going on in his life that sort of explained, okay, why is he not on the field this May, whereas last May he was. So I don't know whether the calf was an issue at that point. He certainly didn't start training camp with it being an issue. I think his last full day of practice was August 4, so that's almost 2 weeks, a week and a half of practicing that he did early on in training camp. So, from what I know, that's when this calf issue became problematic. Now, did it become calf/Achilles later on in the process? I don't know about that. It certainly started with a calf.
Man, and that's just troubling to think that it isn't something that lingered from last year. It might be a totally separate issue, a separate injury, and now here we sit with an IR stint possible. Matt, where are we with the running back room? And I don't even know if they need a room right now. It's just maybe Jordan Mason and Coach Turner at a table, but what do you expect them to do with the running back situation?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, that Jordan Mason is the guy that can handle a bigger load maybe than the average back because he is bigger. I wrote about it this week. He had a really good offseason. He trained with Fred Warner, which gets anybody in shape for the season. And so his stamina is really good. And we saw that in the summer because it wasn't just Christian McCaffrey that went down with an injury. It was Elijah Mitchell. It was Isaac Guerrero. It was Patrick Taylor Jr. Just about every running back on that team suffered a multi-week injury at some point, except for Jordan Mason. And I should add Cody Schrader, the undrafted rookie, also was healthy throughout. He got scooped up by the Rams. So he would be in play right now if he hadn't. But to answer your question, it leaves Isaac Guerrero and Patrick Taylor Jr. as the two other tailbacks on the 53-man roster. And I asked Shanahan about Guerrero today because Guerrero was one of those guys, as I just said, that missed, I think it was probably about 3 weeks with a hamstring strain. And so we're getting to the end of August, and there's a big question about whether he even makes the 53-man roster because he just hadn't practiced at all, hadn't put on pads. But then, of course, he does come back, and he has a very, very good final preseason game against the Raiders. And that assures the 49ers that, okay, we can keep him on the roster, and we can kind of bump him up in the pecking order if there are injuries. And all of a sudden there are, and he's basically the number 2 back for the beginning of this season. So if they do want to start giving Jordan Mason more rest, if they do want to kind of take a little bit of load off of Deebo Samuel, which I imagine they would, 10 carries is a lot for him. I can't see him getting 10 every game for 17 games. I just don't think that's sustainable. They're going to have to start working in one of these other guys, and the first guy on that list is Guerrero.
Matty Barrows, The Athletic, with us here on Willard and Dibs. Matt, you know what I find funny, and I'd love a reaction from you, is sort of like the way the goalposts have gotten moved by 49er fans in the last week. If you had asked any of us a week ago, hey, can the Niners win for a while without Christian? Everybody would have been like, hell no. So then Mason goes out, has one good game, and we're taking calls all day of everybody who's like, yeah, no, they're still the Super Bowl favorite. Like, have we sort of swung in the opposite direction a little bit too far in our confidence in the offense without CMC?
Are you asking if the fans have overreacted?
Okay, fine. Maybe it was a dumb question, Matt.
That never happens. I will say that, the fan base has been clamoring for Jordan Mason for a year now. I mean, they've been watching him come into games at the end of games since his rookie season in 22, and he's looked great. He looked like a throwback running back. Looked like Marshawn Lynch, has the same number as Lynch. So people have been waiting to see what he could do in a featured role for a while. And when he got in, it's exactly what people were envisioning. So, the fan base identified him a while back. So, I mean, I think they're right. He does seem like somebody that can carry this team for a month. My question is, what happens if they overuse him? What happens if he didn't escape the summer entirely unscathed? There was a hip issue at one point. I believe he didn't miss more than 1 or 2 practices. But, I mean, it's possible. 28 carries is a lot. But I feel like if anybody can handle that load on the 49ers, it's Jordan Mason.
Could there be a possible reunion with Matt Breida if McCaffrey eventually goes on IR? What was that parting like when they eventually cut him during cutdown day?
Yeah, the feedback I got was that he wasn't interested in a practice squad spot. He's at a point in his career where, okay, if you want me, put me on the 53-man roster. So, I mean, if it came to that, 49ers needed another running back on the 53-man, yeah, I think he would. When he came in, he did not look like the Matt Breida I had been watching in forget what year he came in, 2017, 2018, but he started to work his way back to that form. I thought he got better and better, which is what you would expect. So I don't know what the ramp up would be if he came back, but yeah, I think he would be on the short list of guys if they needed to bring somebody in. They do have a running back, Keyshawn Vaughn, on the practice squad right now. I think he'd be the next guy up if need be.
Matt, we had our show sports doctor on a short time ago, Dr. Nirav Pandya with UCSF, and he characterized the fact that Kyle Shanahan said today that yesterday was Christian's worst day in terms of pain. He characterized that as super concerning. The need for rest, okay, but the fact that this seemingly sort of like got worse as they tried to ramp him up for a game, what did you view being there in front of the actual people talking? Does Kyle look super concerned to you?
I mean, the tenor has totally changed since 2 days ago when he basically thought that the prospect of IR was outlandish, out of the question. Now it's probably going to happen tomorrow. So, again, they keep expecting this to get better. That's the nature of this injury, is that it gets better with time. I talked to my own orthopedist source who said it almost always resolves itself. Now, it has to resolve with rest a lot of times. And, Christian McCaffrey has not been resting it like you and I would. He hasn't been going as hard as he normally would, but he's still been practicing, and you still see him out there. He's testing it. So it was a hard test that he gave it yesterday that, it did not go well. And presumably it did not go well, I'll say last week, earlier in the week when they were playing the Jets as well, which is why he didn't play against them. So it's not going in the right direction, which I think is going to kind of change the 49ers approach to it. And I can only assume that we're talking about more rest, like real rest, like Dan Dibs rest, like just sitting on the sofa, eating bonbons for 2 weeks type of rest.
Do you have a camera at my house, Matt? Yeah, you kind of owe me there. Yeah, I'll take that as a yes. The Athletic has a very far-reaching scope. Matt Barrows here on 95.7 The Game. In a weird way, does this become some sort of a boost to the Brock Purdy campaign for a contract? And what I mean is, Mark and I talked about it. If McCaffrey's out, you're going to lean probably more on Brock Purdy. Is this a chance to quiet more of the doubters playing football without one of your best players?
Yeah, sure. The big critique of Brock Purdy is that he's just a product of all the special weapons around him, and didn't have probably the most special weapon on Monday. Another one of those weapons was clearly not, in peak form in Brandon Ayuk, and the 49ers still won. I mean, it wasn't a big Brock Purdy day, but I thought it was a good outing for him. It was just the right type of sort of mature performance that you would need in that circumstance, and he delivered it. I don't remember any balls that were, even close to being interceptions. It wasn't perfect. Everybody seemed a little bit rusty, but I can only imagine when Ayuk is sharper, when Debo's not being used as a running back. That's that's going to help the passing attack.
Speaking of Ayuk, he was really good in Minnesota last year. Are we expecting his full complement of snaps on Sunday?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it was he got 60% of the total. He's usually a guy that's up around 95%. His stamina is impressive, and that's one of the reasons why the 49ers like him. He never really has to come off the field because he's the same guy down in and down out. So I would imagine it's somewhere between 60% and 95%. Maybe they get it up into the high 70s for this game, and then maybe into the high 80s for the Rams game, and then maybe by the time the Patriots visit at the end of September, he's back to his normal allotment.
Matt, it's great to have you. Thank you so much, and congrats again for taking over The Athletic.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
All right, there it is.
There it is.
Matty Barrows.